you, and today we're going to continue with the review of Failing Forward by John C. Maxwell. We've already looked at chapter 1 yesterday, so today we're going to be reviewing chapter 2 of this book, which is titled Get a New Definition of Failure and Success. Nelson Boswell says, the difference between greatness and mediocrity is often how an individual views a mistake. So tonight, hopefully, or today, because it may be daytime where you are, hopefully at the end of this review, you would start seeing failure and success in another light. So you all are most welcome. Sit back, relax as we dive into it. All right. So there is a story here about a Major League Baseball player called, what's that his name again? Tony Gwynn. Tony Gwynn had a very, very successful, you might excuse me, please. Sorry, I have a bit of a distraction here. Jeremiah, please now. Tony Gwynn had a very successful career, but he experienced failure in the course of his career as well. The author said that there was a time that this guy missed baseball, as in he missed a hit for the 5,113th time. MK. For the 5,113th time, and that was like a major miss in somebody's professional career, especially as a baseballer. But was this guy discouraged? No. Did he think that he had failed himself or his team? No. Because earlier in the game, he also did something very phenomenal. He reached a milestone that only 21 other people in the history of baseball have ever achieved. So that hit or miss was not perceived to be failure, right? And this is because he had a very good understanding of what failure is and what success is as well. He recognized that to get his hit, he had to make a lot of outs. He had to, miss some balls. He recognized that he did not and he would not always have hits all the time. And there was also a time that the author, John C. Maxwell, wanted to go and see this same baseballer, Tony Gwynn, hit his 3,000 or make his 3,000 hit. And then he really, really wanted to be a part of this game because he had followed Tony Gwynn's career from when he started and up until this time. But then he had a very smooth flight with his son-in-law. But while they landed at the airport, the son-in-law had to go through some custom checks, which made them to be delayed. And then they missed Tony Gwynn's phenomenal match where he would hit his 3,000 hits. But then, even after he missed that, he still did not see himself as a failure. He still did not beat himself up that, they flew all the way to come and watch him play his 3,000, to come and make his 3,000 hits and start beating himself up or turn back from the stadium to say, let's go home, we already missed this. No, they rather stayed there. They were part of the celebration. They enjoyed the rest of the match. And the author said that they were later rewarded because there was a time that Tony Gwynn hit a foul ball into the sands and he got it. As in he, John C. Maxwell, the author, got this ball. And weeks later, he was able to have an encounter with Tony Gwynn, who signed this ball for him. So he had that ball as a souvenir from his 3,000 hits game. So one of the greatest problems people have with failure is that they are too quick to judge isolated solutions in their lives and label them as failures. Somebody has just failed an exam, for example. This is just one event in your life. You cannot use that fact to now label yourself as a failure. Unfortunately, this is what a lot of people do. They fail an exam and so they conclude that, oh, they have failed in life. Or somebody fails in business and the person has concluded that, oh, he has failed in life, forgetting that his marriage is working well, forgetting that his children are doing well, forgetting that he is a good Christian, he's serving God well. But for the singular fact that this person just failed in business, then he labels himself as a total failure. This is just an isolated situation in the scheme of things. Someone like Tony Goin doesn't look at an out or a miss, that he makes and think of failure. He sees it within the context of the bigger picture. NK, sorry, excuse me. NK, all right, so you have to look at the bigger picture. Don't just isolate problems in your life and assume that you are a failure. So it is your perspective that matters. So what are the things that failure is not? Or what are some definitions that we give to failure? But in actual sense, failure is not any of this. So we're going to look at 7 things that failure is not, because you need to change your perspective for you to persevere. If you don't change your perspective, you will not be able to persevere. And if you don't persevere, you may not be able to achieve your goals. So you have to change your perspective about failure. So let us look at 7 things that failure is not. Number 1, people think that failure is avoidable. It is not. Failure is not avoidable. It is a part of life. There is a saying that to err is human, to forgive is divine. If as human beings we are not going to make mistakes, we're not going to commit any error, there wouldn't be any need for forgiveness. There wouldn't be any need for repentance, right? So it is a part of life. It is not avoidable. Failure is not avoidable. You are probably familiar with Murphy's Law and the Peter Principle, right? Recently, the author said he came across something called rules for being human. As humans, failure is a part of our lives. It is part of our experiences. Please, is my sound okay? I really want to know. Is my sound okay? Is it good? Somebody should please give me feedback. All right. I think the list describes well the state we are in as a people. Number 1 rule. Let us look at the rules for being human. Number 1, you will learn lessons. Thank you so much, Mr. Adekunle. You will learn lessons in your life. Number 2 rule, there are no mistakes, only lessons. So any mistake that you think that you have made in life, don't beat yourself up, right? It is just a lesson. You have learned how not to do something. You have learned who not to do business with. You have learned how not to talk, how not to do whatever, or how to do it better. So there are no mistakes in life. There are only lessons. Learn your lessons and move on. Number 3 rule, a lesson is repeated until it is learned, right? The fact that you failed once in business and then you failed the second time does not make you a failure. You repeat it over and over. If you have a child and you're trying to teach that child anything, be rest assured that that child is going to make that mistake a few times, right? It doesn't make that child a failure. The child is only in the process of learning. Number 4 rule, if you don't learn the easy lessons, they get harder. So don't avoid failure. Don't avoid the mistakes, because it is either you learn it now or you learn it later in life. And the more you procrastinate learning it, the harder it becomes. So sit down, relax, learn what you have to learn. Don't try to avoid it. Pain is one way the universe gets your attention. There are people who ought to learn about marriage early in life. They don't learn it. Unfortunately, they learn the hard way. There are people who ought to probably go to school, attend a short course about business, but then they try to avoid that. What happened? They learn the hard way. Number 5 rule, you will know you've learned a lesson when your actions change. If there are no changes, then it means that you have not learned anything. You have not learned your lesson. And if you keep failing, If you keep failing, if you keep making mistakes over and over, there are some mistakes that are avoidable. There are some mistakes that you should not make twice, right? So if you keep making this same mistake over and over, just know that you have not learned. You need to calm down and really learn. All right. The essence of man is imperfection. Know that you're going to make mistakes. It is a part of life. So you need to perceive failure this way, so that anytime you make a mistake, you are not too hard on yourself. You don't pack up everything and then, not want to make any move again. Number two of what failure is not. People think that failure is an event. It is not an event. Failure is a process. When you fail an exam and you get an F, then you assume that, oh, that is an event, that makes you a failure. No, it has not made you a failure, except you now conclude that you're a failure. That is just an event. If you start a business today and you fail, that is just an event. It is just an occurrence that happened in your life. But then failure is a process, right? You need to know these three terms that the authors came up with in one of the books that he wrote some time ago in 1997, titled The Success Journey. He said, he defined failure in three terms. He said, knowing your purpose in life. Number two, growing to reach your potential. Number three, sowing seeds that benefit others. So failure is not a destination. It is not a place where you arrive one day and say, yes, I have now arrived. Now a total failure. No, it is not a destination. It is a journey that you take. You keep on embarking on this journey, and failure or success comes from what you do every day. So what you do every day, your habits, your routine, your thought pattern will determine whether you're a failure or a success. So success is a failure as much as failure. Sorry, what am I saying? Success is a process as much as failure is a process, right? Until you breathe your last breath, you are not a failure. So don't admit that you're a failure just because something happened in your life now. Just because your child did not graduate, just because your marriage failed, just because your business did not work out, just because you don't have money right now. Don't assume that you're a failure. There is an adage in Yoruba that says, Baoku ishe otan. It means that as long as we are still living, there will always be doings. There will always be events. We are still on this journey, right? There are so many things that we can still do. So don't give up on yourself, right? Until you take your last breath on earth, the process continues, right? The journey continues. Number three of what failure is not. People think that failure is objective. It is not. The fact that you fail at something, or you made a mistake about your child, you made the wrong choice in marriage or in business, you blew up your money, you did not invest, and all of that. Now, there is no yardstick anywhere that concludes that any of these things is a failure, right? There is no fact, there is no yardstick anywhere. There is no judgment by anybody or any rule to measure that what happened is a failure. So failure is not objective. It is not something that you see afar off and you judge based on an existing fact. To say, oh, if you do not graduate from a university, there is a law that says you have failed. There is nothing like that. It is based on your own perception. It is based on how you label failure. If your children don't do well, nobody is going to say, oh, you have failed, right? Except you now say it yourself that you have failed. So it is the way you perceive it. Did you know that entrepreneurs almost never get their first business off the ground, or their second or their third? According to Tulane University business professor Lisa Amos, he said, or she said, I guess it's she said that the average for entrepreneurs is 3.8 failures before they finally make it in business. They are not deterred by problems, mistakes, or errors. Why? Because they don't see setbacks as failures. They recognize that 3 steps forward and 2 steps backward still equals 1 step forward. So as a result, they overcome the average and become achievers. So if you start a business today, according to this submission, you should prepare your mind that, oh, you may have to fail 3.8 times. If you don't now fail at all, fantastic, all well and good. right? But if you fail the first time, second time, third time, it still doesn't make you a failure, except you now perceive it yourself. You now conclude that yes, because I failed once or twice, then it is a failure. So it is your perception or response to your mistakes that determine whether your actions or failure, not by what anybody says, not by what any book says, not by what any professor says, nothing like that. So failure is not objective, it is subjective. Number four, people think failure is the enemy. Failure is not, right? Failure is not. NBA coach Rick Pitino states that even more strongly. He says that failure is good because it is like a fertilizer. It propels you to want to achieve something. Failure should motivate you. If somebody calls you a failure, somebody says you cannot do something, now this is a very good reason. This should now be a very good motivation to say, no, I'm going to prove that person wrong, even though you shouldn't live your life trying to prove any point to anybody. But this should be like a fertilizer, a motivation to say that, yes, I'm going to go ahead regardless. When we give ourselves permission to fail, we at the same time give ourselves permission to excel. So failure is not your enemy. It is not your enemy. Number five, people think failure is irreversible. It is not. There's an old saying in Texas that it doesn't matter how much milk you spill, as long as you don't lose your cow. If you still have that cow can still produce so much milk for you, right? What this means is that mistakes are not irreversible. They can be reversible. And what this also means, in my own words, is that as long as you are alive, if you keep making mistakes or if you make any mistakes, as long as you're alive, as long as you are not dead, you can still correct your mistakes. You can still correct your wrongs. If you pay attention, if you are an intentional person, if you are somebody that really wants to make good choices in life. So keep everything in perspective. The problems come when you only see the spilled milk and not the bigger picture. The fact that you spilled your milk, the fact that something does not go well right now, does not mean that you're a failure. You're still alive. You can sit back, go back to the drawing board, re-strategize, think about it, seek counsel, and then try again. People who correctly see failure take it in stride. So every event, whether good or bad, is one step in the process of living, right? If silly things were not done, intelligent things would never happen. If we don't make mistakes, we'll never see things that are right. We'll never know things that are wrong or right. So allow yourself to fail. Don't be afraid of failure. Number six, people think that failure is a stigma. It is not. Show me a person who has never made a mistake in life. Show me a person who has never failed in life. And I'll show you somebody who has never succeeded in life. These are people who played safe in life. They don't want to commit to that investment. They don't want to do that business. They don't want to go into marriage just because they don't want to fail, right? Failure is not a stigma. And the fact that you have failed before does not make you a failure. Like we said, until you now label yourself a failure. So mistakes are not permanent markers. When you make mistakes, don't let them get you down. Don't let yourself think of them as stigmas. All right. Number seven, people think that failure is final. Failure is not final. It is not final. It is just one event in life, in the journey of life. It is not final. Nobody can say, oh, because you lost money today and that is final, except, like I said, you now sit there, you refuse to move forward, you refuse to fail forward. Even what may appear to be a huge failure doesn't need to keep you from achieving. It doesn't need to, right? A story is told of a guy here, Z-Man, who introduced new Coca-Cola some years back just because the Coca-Cola company was experiencing a decline, right, at that time against its rival Pepsi. They were in a fierce competition with Pepsi at the time. So this guy thought, okay, let me jiggle things up. Let us introduce this new Coca-Cola product. And so they named it New Coca-Cola. But that product failed. It failed and cost the company about $100 million as of that time, right? I'm trying to check for the year, if the year is here. It was many years ago. As of that time, we are talking of like in the 1990s, early 1990s, thereabouts, right? And so this guy had to leave the Coca-Cola company. He left. But later on, he was rehired because the chairman, the late chairman at that time, now realized that yes, even though that didn't work out, even though his recipe did not work out, the totality of his action ended up being possible, ended up being positive, I mean. So he rehired him in 1993, and he said that we judge the results. We get paid to produce results. We don't get paid to be right. So they realized that, oh, even though this guy, Zeman, introduced a new recipe for Coca-Cola just to shake things up and see how they could get an edge against Pepsi at that time. The product failed, but then they realized that, oh, he was even bold enough to introduce the new recipe, to want to try something new, even though it cost the company a lot. But then he still made an impact. His move still ended up being positive in the long run. So this is also to say that don't judge the results, right? Judge the things that you do right. Judge each step that you take in life towards achieving your goal, whether they turn out to be positive or negative. But give yourself a pat on the back for even trying out new things, for challenging yourself to get out of your comfort zone. So it all depends on how you look at it. There's an example here of Apostle Paul in the Bible, who said, I have learned in whatever state I am to be content. This was a guy who went through several challenges. He went through different things. His faith was tested. He had a shipwreck. He was beaten. He was persecuted. He was stoned. He was imprisoned. Yet, he still saw all of this from a positive light, that I have learned to be content in life, whatever comes my way. There is this hymn that is coming to my head now. Whatever my Lord, thou hast taught me to say, it is well with my soul, you know. And from the story of this guy, he lost his family. He lost everything that he had. The author of this hymn, if I remember the story, I think I remember vaguely. What led him to write the song? He lost his family. You know, I think they were to travel somehow, yeah. And then he told his family to go ahead of him, his wife and his children, and maybe their ships, they had a shipwreck or something. They sank, their boats sank or something like that. He lost his entire family, and if I'm not mistaken, I think he had lost everything. And then he came up with this: "Well, it is well with my soul. Whatever my Lord thou hast taught me to say, it is well with my soul." You know, when peace like a river attended my soul, when trouble that road billows roll, whatever my Lord thou hast taught me to say, it is well with my soul. So it is all about perception. You know now that mistakes, failures, some incidents that are not palatable are a part of life. So it depends on how you handle them. Don't let them break you, right? Use them as a springboard and move yourself to the next height, to the next level. It is not the end of life. Failure, mistakes are not final. Every person's life is filled with errors and negative experiences. But know this: error becomes mistakes when we perceive them and respond to them incorrectly. Mistakes become failures when we continually respond to them incorrectly. People who fail forward are able to see errors or negative experiences as a regular part of life. So learn from them, learn from your mistakes and errors, and then move on. They persevere in order to achieve, thank you, their purpose in life. Great minds have purposes, others have wishes. Little minds are subdued by misfortunes, but great minds rise above them. The terrible truth is that all roads to achievement lead through the land of failure. So many people believe that the process is supposed to be easy. According to Thomas Edison, a prolific American inventor, he observed that attitude among people, right? They think that the journey of life is supposed to be easy, but no, it is how you respond to it, because failure is really a matter of conceit. Each of us has to make a choice. Are we going to sleep life away, avoiding failure at all costs? Or are we going to wake up and realize this, that failure is simply a price we pay to achieve success? If we learn to embrace that new definition of failure, then we are free to start moving ahead and failing forward. Failure should never keep you on the same spot. Use it as a springboard to move forward. Learn what you can learn from it. Pay attention to the lessons that failure is trying to teach you, that life is trying to bring your way. Because even God allows us to pass through some things in life. Yes, there is a saying that the examiner is always silent during a test. If you are writing a test, for example, an exam as a student, even if you don't know the answer to anything, you cannot ask the examiner. The examiner is not going to answer you because he wants you to figure it out. That's the essence of the exam. The same thing applies to life. Sometimes God allows us to pass through some tough situations in life. You pray, you fast, you do everything. It looks as if nothing is happening. That is God trying to teach you a lesson. If that situation does not break you, congratulations to you, because you'll be promoted to the next level. You will face a tougher situations. If you overcome that one, you'll be promoted to the next level. So see challenges this way. Let's look at the story of a guy here. What's his name? Dan Cathy. No, sorry. His name is Truett. He owned one of the biggest restaurants in America. Chick-fil International. But this guy went through so many terrible situations. In fact, when I was reading this story, it was such a pathetic one. Yeah. Truett and his son, John Cathy. Okay. So this guy started being an entrepreneur from his childhood days, when he would buy a pack of Coca-Cola for a quarter of $1. That's 25 cents, right? He would buy it, he would resell, he would make 20% profit. Sometimes during the hot weather, he would ice it, he would sell it. He started selling and making profit. And at times, and during winter in America, when the weather was cold and people were not interested in cold drinks, he would sell magazines, and at other times he would help somebody to sell newspapers. And all, he had an entrepreneurial spirit. And when he grew older, he decided to join the army. And when he was discharged from the army, he saw an opportunity to pursue his dream. He wanted to open up his restaurant. And then he opened this restaurant called Dwarf Grill, which later became Dwarf House in Georgia, south side of Atlanta. This restaurant was open 24 hours a day and 6 days a week. And he was running this business alongside his brother. But 3 years into the business, he experienced a tragic loss. In fact, losses, not a tragic, losses. He lost 2 of his brothers in a horrible plane crash. It was bad enough to lose a business partner. It was even worse, more horrible, to lose 2 brothers in one day. But this did not stop him. He still went ahead to continue the business and was able to open a second branch of this restaurant. But that was not the end of his tragic losses. Before he knew it, he had a fire outbreak in one of his restaurants. He tried to rush there to see if the restaurant could be saved, but everything was gutted by fire. He lost everything. And as if that was not all, he became sick. It was discovered that he had polyps in his colon, and that needed to be removed. So he went to the hospital. Instead of him trying to rebuild his restaurant that got burnt by fire, he now had to go to the hospital for surgery. And he thought it would be just one surgery. He ended up having like 2 surgeries. And he thought that, he would recover very fast and go back to business. For somebody who had an entrepreneurial spirit, who really was active in business. But then he ended up spending months and months in the hospital. But then he turned the lemon that life threw at him into lemonade. While he was in the hospital, he decided to think of how to turn his business around. Can you imagine? I hope you're following the story. Somebody there would have become bedridden, they would have given up on the idea of still running that restaurant. But then he started to think. He started to think of different concepts. The fact that he was on his hospital bed inspired him to keep thinking about his business, and he came up with $1 million idea. He thought of a recipe, an existing recipe, and how he could flip that recipe around. And that recipe became something great that now turned his business into $1 billion business. He then owned one of the most successful restaurant chains in the world, right? He turned his failure, his losses, his tragedy into blessings. So what is that lemon that life is throwing at you? You need to look at it straight in the eye and turn it into lemonade. In the year 2000, his business, from the recipe that he got, the idea of the recipe he got when he was on his hospital bed, from which he developed the Chick-fil-A sandwich, in the year 2000, this same recipe from this is sandwich turned this business into $1 billion company, right? The business continues to grow, yet it never would have come to pass if this guy, Truett Cathy, had not experienced the setbacks that he did. He maintained his perspective and realized that a few negative experiences don't make for failure. Thomas Edison believed that many of life's failures are people who did not realize how close they were to success when they gave up. I once made this illustration that if an angel appeared to you, that's, oh, you're going to make it when you turn 45 years old in life. But then, because you don't have this information, you don't know that God has destined you, that you're going to become a billionaire when you clock 45, right? And then you're just in life, you're just going through life, you're going through life, you're hustling, you're doing everything, putting in your best. But then the moment you clock 44 and things are still not working out, then you decide to give up. You say, a fool at 40 is a fool forever. I've been trying all my life. Oh, let me not just give up. I'm not going to pursue any dream again. Let me just take life as it is and just be barely passing through life. I cannot come and kill myself. Not knowing that you have just one more year to your breakthrough. The moment you clock 45, you are going to make it big time. Your name is going to be listed amongst the names of the richest men in the world. But because you don't have this information, you pack it all up and you give up. So because you don't know the time, the day, the hour, that is when you should not give. That is why you should not give up. Keep pushing, persevere, have a strong willpower. Stay put there. Thomas Edison said that many people think that life is going to be easy. That, because you have that fantastic business idea, the moment you start executing it, it is going to fly. It doesn't happen that way. Having it in your head is different from now executing it, implementing it. As a content creator, sometimes I have this fantastic idea in my head. Everything is well scripted in my brain. Fantastic. And I'm saying it in my head. But the moment I set my camera to now say it to the camera so that I can edit it and post, come on. I'll say that it's not that easy. What I had in my head is just, it's just abstract, right? Now, let me do the real talk. I would have thought that, I would flow the way I was flowing in my head. But no, the moment I open my mouth to talk, the words will just keep, I just keep blabbing. As in, I want to pronounce she, I'm saying C, I'm saying, things like that. And then I'll cut it, start again. I may have 5 takes. Before, even that 5 takes, it is not smooth. I still have to edit it, cut out some blabbing, cut out some fluffs and all of that, so that the video is not too long and it is not full of so many blunders. That is the way life is. It is not always a jolly ride, even though we all pray for a jolly ride. So don't give up. You don't know how close you are to that success. All right. So if you can change the way you see failure, then you gain the strength to keep running the race. Get a new definition of failure. Regard it as the price you pay for progress. If you can do that, you will put yourself in a much better position to fail forward. Remember, mistakes don't define failure. Yes, about my video content. Mistakes don't define failure. They are merely the price of achievement on the success journey. So start defining failure in another way. Oh, you guys can relate. Fantastic. That's the way it is, right? You think that, oh, everything is so smooth in your, it's only in your head. It is only your head. Once you have that business idea also, you think that, this is a fantastic proposal. I'm going to get funding. Once I present it, they're going to buy into it and all of that. But now you go out to meet the real people that are supposed to fund it. They're asking you 1 million questions and you don't have answers to them. You are thinking, it's true. I didn't even think of this. I didn't even, and then they are saying, well, sorry, we cannot fund your business. You are wondering, but this is a fantastic idea. Anybody should buy into it. Life is not a bed of roses, all right? So have a different definition of success and failure from today. Mistakes don't define failure. Thank you so much, everybody. Thank you for joining. Thank you for tuning in. God bless you all. I'm glad that you all learned something. From the comments, I could see that you were following. So don't beat yourself all up because of failure, because of mistakes. All right. Don't forget to like this video. I can only see 1 like. Is it that you people don't like the video? You don't like it. That's why you're not giving it a thumbs up. Like this video, drop your comments, subscribe to this channel in case you're yet to subscribe. I remain Olaide Agbaje, also known as First Lady, and on this channel, I inspire you to live intentionally. Tomorrow, we're going to have another interesting review, and that is for chapter 3, and it is titled, If You Have Failed, Are You a Failure? Not a Failure. Until then, be intentional. Bye. The love emojis, and that's in the comments. I'm talking of giving this video itself a thumbs up. I didn't see the love emojis though. Maybe I was looking down at the time. Thank you for the engagement. Thank you. God bless you. Bye-bye.